The trauma bay doors hissed open at 1:47 a.m. and every head turned. Dr. Marcus Vale stood over the gurney, arms crossed, crisp Brioni scrubs still flawless despite the blood spatter. He looked straight at Elena Voss and spoke loud enough for the entire night shift to hear. "You're a glorified janitor with a stethoscope. Stay in your lane or I'll have security walk you out with your little box of crayons." Elena's shoulders stayed level. She said nothing. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. The smell of iodine and melting snow clung to every uniform in the room. 6 hours later, her name would be on the lips of a dying Delta operator airlifted through a Midwest blizzard. And the woman they had just mocked in front of 20 witnesses was the only soul on Earth who could answer when he whispered one word: Reaper. Elena Voss was 37, single mother to 9-year-old Sophie. For 4 years, she had worked the night shift at Ridgeview General in Duluth, Minnesota, arriving at 7 p.m. and leaving at 7 a.m. like clockwork. She kept her left forearm covered by long sleeves even in summer. She spoke softly, never raised her voice, never fought back. Dr. Marcus Vale, 48, head of trauma, wore a $38,000 Rolex that caught the light every time he gestured. His remarks were surgical. "Voss, try not to kill anyone with basic math tonight. Even the janitors laugh at your charts, Elena." The staff always gave that nervous half-laugh. Elena would simply nod, adjust in 4, and move on. For months earlier, she had quietly corrected a medication timing in front of him during rounds. Vale had turned purple and hissed, "One more word and I'll have your badge before sunrise." The entire team had gone silent. She had folded her hands and stepped back. In her right scrub pocket, she carried the same small paper napkin Sophie had given her the very first day she started at Ridgeview. A child's crayon drawing of wings, edges frayed, colors faded from 1,000 careful folds. Every night before shift, she touched it once, like a promise. The blizzard had been screaming since sundown. Wind howled against the glass walls of the trauma bay. By 11:30, the roads were impassable. Then the multi-car pileup on Highway 61 came in all at once. Chaos, alarms, 3 critical kids, 2 adults coding. The crash team was already overwhelmed in Bay 1 when a 4th gurney rolled down the hallway. A 6-year-old boy, gray, not breathing, sat crashing. The residents froze. Dr. Vale was still tied up in the main bay barking orders. Elena moved before anyone registered it. She dropped to her knees in the corridor, slid the boy's head into her lap, and performed a needle decompression so smooth it looked like muscle memory from another life. 2 precise breaths with an ambu bag. 1 drug drawn from a pocket she shouldn't have had access to. The child's color returned in under 90 seconds. A resident finally skidded around the corner. Elena stood up, wiped her hands, and stepped backward into the shadows. "He just needed a little help," she said quietly. "You've got it from here." The resident took credit in the chart. No one questioned it. Elena simply returned to restocking the crash cart, the paper napkins still folded tight against her heart. She had no idea the night was only beginning. At 2:14 a.m., 2 unmarked image, 6 little birds dropped out of the whiteout and landed hard on the snow-covered staff parking lot. Their rotors beat the fresh powder into a swirling curtain. 4 operators in winter camo sprinted toward the ER doors, carrying a 6th man between them on a makeshift litter. Blood trailed behind them in perfect crimson dots on the white tiles. The soldiers' vitals were gone by the time they hit the trauma bay. Dr. Vale stepped forward, gloved, confident. "Let's get a line and push AP." The patient flatlined. "Vale froze." For the first time all night, his hands trembled. Elena's hands stopped trembling. She stepped between the operators and the gurney, voice low but carrying. "Move." One operator looked up, eyes wide behind his balaclava. "Ma'am, he's been asking for Reaper since the bird went down." Elena didn't answer. She rolled up her left sleeve in one calm motion. There it was. a faded tattoo of folded wings and the numbers 287. The room went dead quiet except for the howl of the storm outside. She placed 2 fingers on the soldier's neck, read the monitor like sheet music, and began issuing commands that sounded nothing like a night shift nurse. 2 units on egg, now. Push TXA. Prep the thoracotomy tray. Someone get me a 28 French chest tube. Dr. Vale stood motionless. Rolex suddenly very loud in the silence. Elena saved the first operator before the second little bird's casualties even reached the doors. Then she directed the entire understaffed hospital through 3 more critical patients in the next 43 minutes. Every move precise, every call flawless. By 3:12 a.m., all 4 men were stable. She wiped her brow with the back of her wrist, looked at the paper napkin still safe in her pocket, and allowed herself one slow breath. The storm outside showed no sign of stopping. 19 hours until the hospital administrators called the emergency review board to fire her. And the debt that had been building for 4 years was only beginning to come due. The snow kept falling in thick, silent sheets. Elena moved from bay to bay like a shadow that knew every corner of the hospital. Her sneakers left faint pink prints where the blood had already begun to dry. Dr. Vale watched her from the nurse's station, arms crossed, the gold Patek on his wrist catching the fluorescent glare every time he checked it. He said nothing. Not yet. At 4:47 a.m., the second wave arrived. 2 more operators with shrapnel wounds and 1 with a sucking chest wound that whistled every time he tried to breathe. Elena was already there, sleeves still rolled, the faded wings tattooed dark against her pale forearm. She didn't wait for permission. Clamp, suction, hold that retractor exactly where I put it. Her voice stayed low, almost gentle, but the orders cut through the chaos like a scalpel. The operators obeyed without hesitation. One of them, a sergeant with frostbite on his cheeks, whispered, "Reaper's real. I thought the stories were bullshit." She didn't acknowledge it, just kept working. The chest tube went in clean. The bleeding slowed. By 5:22 a.m., the last casualty was off the table and headed to recovery. Elena stepped back, rolled her sleeve down again, and felt the folded paper napkin brush her fingers through the thin fabric of her scrub pocket. She allowed herself 3 heartbeats of stillness. Then she walked to the break room, poured 2 cups of coffee, and carried 1 back to the trauma bay. Dr. Vale was still standing in the same spot. She held the cup out. He stared at it like it might explode. "Drink it," she said. "You look like hell." He took the cup but didn't sip. His Italian leather shoes were speckled with dried blood now. The spotless shine from yesterday was gone. "You're going to lose your job," he said quietly. "The board hears about an unlicensed nurse running a mass casualty event. They'll crucify you. And me, for letting it happen." Elena looked at him for a long second. "They already decided that 4 years ago, Marcus. This just makes the paperwork easier." She turned and left him holding the untouched coffee. Day 2 began at 7 a.m. with a hospital that smelled of bleach, coffee, and fear. The storm had eased to a steady fall. Power flickered twice before the generators kicked in for good. Elena clocked in like any other shift, hair pulled into a tight bun, name tag crooked. The paper napkin stayed in her left pocket, edges soft from years of folding and unfolding. At 8:14 a.m., the first administrator showed up. Regional Director Linda Hargrove, charcoal pantsuit, pearls tight at her throat. She cornered Elena in the supply closet. "What the hell happened last night?" Hargrove's voice was ice. "We have protocols. We have Dr. Vale. You are a night shift nurse, not a trauma god."
Elena counted sterile gauze packs.
"For men would be dead if I'd waited for protocol. You exceeded your scope by a mile. The review board meets at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Pack your things, Elena. This isn't a discussion." Hargrove turned on her heel, shoes clicking down the hallway like a countdown. Elena kept counting. When the door clicked shut, she pulled the napkin from her pocket, unfolded it once, and read the faded ink in her own handwriting. Asterisk 287 missions. Bring them all home. Asterisk she refolded it carefully and slid it back. At 10:03 a.m. a new patient rolled in, Corporal Reyes, the sixth man from the original litter, now awake and seizing. Monitors screamed. Dr. Vale was in surgery across the hall. The on-call resident was 30 minutes out in the snow. Elena moved without thinking. She drew up lorazepam, pushed it slow, then talked the seizing man down with the same calm she once used on terrified pilots at 30,000 feet. Easy, Reyes. I've got you. Stay with me. That's it. The seizure broke at 10:07. Reyes's eyes focused. He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. Reaper, you really are her. The one who flew the night we lost half a platoon over Kandahar. They said you died with them. Elena gently pried his fingers loose. They say a lot of things. She checked his vitals again. Stable. She allowed the smallest smile, the kind that never reached her eyes, and tucked an extra blanket around his shoulders like he was one of her own. Word spread fast in a building full of exhausted people. By noon, 3 more operators had found excuses to visit the ICU. They didn't say much. They just nodded at her with a respect that made Dr. Vale's jaw tighten every time he passed. At 1:45 p.m., the hospital's blood bank ran critically low on O-negative after the night's hemorrhage. Supply trucks were snowed in on Highway 17. Elena disappeared into the records room for 9 minutes. When she emerged, she carried a handwritten list. Call these 3 donors, she told the desk nurse. They're all type Oneg, local, retired military. Tell them Reaper asked. They'll come. The nurse blinked. Reaper, just make the calls. Within 43 minutes, 4 donors arrived. 2 men, 2 women, stomping snow off their boots in the lobby. One of them, a retired chief warrant officer named Ruiz, saw Elena in the hallway and froze. Captain, he whispered. She shook her head once. Just Elena now, and we need what's in your veins, Chief. Ruiz rolled up his sleeve without another word. The others followed. By 3:12 p.m., the blood bank had 32 fresh units. Enough. Dr. Vale watched the donors leave from the window of his office. His Brioni jacket hung on the chair behind him. The Rolex ticked louder than the wall clock. He picked up the phone, hesitated, then set it down again. His private text to Hargrove at 3:41 p.m. read only, *, she's saving more lives than we are. Maybe we should talk before tomorrow. *. Hargrove never replied. Day 3. The snow had stopped, but the cold remained. Elena's shift should have ended at 7 a.m., yet she stayed. A new operator arrived by medevac at 9:22 a.m., gunshot through the femur, bleeding out despite the tourniquet. No surgeon on site. Dr. Vale was stuck in an emergency admin meeting about the nurse situation. Elena pulled the crash cart herself. She scrubbed in at the sink, the wings tattoo catching the light again. 2 surgical techs who had heard the rumors simply fell in behind her like it was the most natural thing in the world. She opened the leg, found the bleeder, tied it off in 4 precise throws. The patient's pressure climbed. When she closed, her hands were rock steady. She stepped back at 10:51 a.m., peeled off her gloves, and felt the napkin shift in her pocket again. Later that afternoon, at 2:14 p.m., exactly 72 hours after the first little birds touched down, Dr. Vale finally cornered her in the stairwell. His Italian shoes squeaked on the concrete. I saw the tattoo, he said. I saw what you did. 3 impossible saves in one night, blood donors appearing out of thin air, a surgical field you had no business running. Who are you, Elena? She looked at him for a long time. The stairwell smelled of wet concrete and old coffee. Someone who used to fly birds smaller than those little birds, she said quietly. Someone who brought 287 missions home before they decided a mother with a sick son wasn't fit for the cockpit anymore. Someone who took a nursing job in the middle of nowhere so she could still be near the only thing that mattered, her boy. And someone who's been quietly keeping this place alive for 4 years while you and your board cut corners and budgets. Vale's face went pale. The Patek suddenly looked very heavy on his wrist. You could have said something. I did. 4 years ago, you called my record scrap paper from a washed-up pilot. Then you recommended my termination. She started up the stairs.
Elena.
She paused, one hand on the railing. I'm starting to think tomorrow is going to go very differently than we planned, he said. She didn't turn around. A lot can happen in 19 hours. At 5:03 a.m., the power went out completely. Generators struggled. ICU alarms howled on battery. Corporal Reyes started crashing again. Sepsis setting in hard. Elena moved through the dark with a headlamp, the beam cutting narrow tunnels of light. She adjusted drips by feel, called out dosages from memory, kept Reyes talking about his daughter's upcoming birthday so he wouldn't slip away. By 6:47 a.m., the backup grid kicked in. Reyes stabilized. Elena sat on the floor beside his bed for 4 minutes. The paper napkin unfolded in her lap. She traced the numbers with one finger. 287. Then she folded it again and stood. A state health inspector invited by Director Hargrove to witness serious lapses in protocol demanded to see the charts from the night of the storm. Elena handed them over without a word. Every signature was hers, every order timed to the minute. The inspector's eyebrows rose higher with each page. These read like a combat surgeon's notes, he muttered. They are, Elena said. The inspector looked up. And you're? Just the night nurse. But the operators in the hallway heard. One of them, the sergeant from the first wave, stepped forward. She's Captain Elena Voss, 87th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The woman who flew through a sandstorm to pull 14 of us out of a hot LZ when everyone else turned back. They grounded her when her son got sick. She never stopped serving. Not once. The inspector's pen stopped moving. Director Hargrove, standing 3 feet away in a crisp navy suit and new Louboutins, looked like she had swallowed glass. Elena met Hargrove's eyes. Still think I should pack my things? Hargrove opened her mouth, closed it. The stairwell lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a child, Elena's 9-year-old son, Sophie's little brother Liam, who had been brought in by a neighbor because school was canceled, laughed at a silly video on a nurse's phone. The sound drifted through the tension like warm air. Elena reached into her pocket, pulled out the napkin, and handed it to Hargrove. Read it, then decide what kind of hospital you want to run. Hargrove unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. The faded handwriting stared back at her. Asterisk 287 missions. Bring them all home. Asterisk below it in smaller letters added over the years. And never forget the ones who didn't make it. Director Hargrove's expensive heels suddenly looked too tall for the floor she stood on. The board convened at 10:30 in the glass-walled conference room on the 3rd floor. Every chair was filled. Richard Lang sat at the head, expression unreadable. Elena was not invited. She waited in the hallway instead, back against the wall, arms folded. The napkin rested inside her pocket like a folded set of orders. At 10:51, the doors opened. Hargrove emerged first. Her steps were slower now. The Patek on her wrist caught the light, but her shoulders had lost their perfect line. She stopped 3 feet from Elena. Lang wants to speak with you. Alone. Elena said nothing. She simply walked past the woman whose heels no longer sounded like authority. Inside the room, the air carried the faint vanilla of Lang's cologne and the sharper bite of fresh coffee. The venture capitalist studied her the way intelligence officers once had, reading the patches that weren't on her scrubs. I flew with your old wingman, he said without preamble.
Lieutenant-colonel Marcus Hale.
He still calls you Ghost. Says the only pilot who ever brought back a Black Hawk with 3 engines out and 6 wounded aboard was a woman who refused to log the mission because it wasn't special enough. Elena's jaw flexed once. She kept her eyes on the city skyline beyond the glass. Lang continued, I was ready to pull 8.4 million this morning. Now I'm wondering if I should double it. But I need to know one thing. He leaned forward. Why didn't you tell anyone who you were? She reached into her pocket, produced the napkin, and laid it on the polished mahogany between them. The fabric looked small against all that expense. Because the ones who didn't make it don't get a second chance at introductions. I figured the ones who did shouldn't have to either. Lang studied the faded ink. His manicured finger traced the newer line. For the first time that morning, the room was completely quiet. Outside the glass, Hargrove watched the entire exchange. Her reflection showed lips pressed thin, the crack in her armor now visible to anyone who cared to look. The board voted at 11:07 a.m. funding secured. But the minutes carried a single line item. Administrative review of CEO performance to be conducted in 30 days. Hargrove read the language herself from the printed sheet, voice steady but quieter than the day before. Elena spent the afternoon in the burn unit, changing dressings on a 6-year-old who had pulled a pan of boiling water onto herself. The child's cries quieted the moment the napkin was placed in her good hand. Elena's own fingers, scarred across the knuckles from old ejection seat buckles, moved with the same patience she once used to clear a jammed .50 cal at 12,000 feet. At 4:12 p.m., an auditor from the State Health Department had received an anonymous tip. The clinic's pediatric transport logs allegedly showed discrepancies, totaling $187,000 over the last 14 months. If the numbers didn't reconcile by close of business tomorrow, the entire funding package would be frozen pending investigation. The donor would be notified at once. Elena read the message at the nurse's station while the smell of antiseptic and warm milk drifted from the nearby nursery. She closed the laptop lid with a soft click. She found Hargrove in her corner office at 5:03, staring at the same email. The woman's desk was immaculate. Mont Blanc pens lined like soldiers, a single white orchid in a crystal vase. No family photos, only a small silver frame turned face down. You think I did this? Hargrove said without looking up. Her voice carried no accusation, only exhaustion. I think someone doesn't want that money to stay here, Elena answered. Different question. Do you want it to stay here? Hargrove finally met her eyes. For 3 full seconds, the polished CEO and the disgraced pilot simply looked at each other. Then Hargrove reached into her drawer and pulled out a thick binder. The label read Transport Logs. Reconciliation. I've been trying to fix this for 6 weeks, she said. Every time I get close, another discrepancy appears. It's like the books are fighting me. Elena took the binder. Its weight felt familiar the way mission briefs once had. She opened it on the desk between them. Columns of numbers swam in neat rows, but one column kept repeating the same 6-digit identifier, 4,471, on entries that didn't match any known ambulance run. She tapped the number. Invoice 4471. That's not a transport code. That's an internal maintenance tag. Someone's routing phantom repair charges through the pediatric accounts. Hargrove's manicured nails drummed once. How do you know that? Because I wrote the original billing software when this place was still a Quonset hut behind the old airfield. Before I ever put on a flight suit. The admission slipped out low, almost conversational. Back when the only donor we had was the Rotary Club and a retired colonel who believed kids shouldn't die because their parents couldn't pay. Hargrove stared at her. The Patek on her wrist had stopped ticking. She had forgotten to wind it. You built the system? I built a lot of things people later decided were better off forgotten. Elena closed the binder. Give me until midnight. I'll find where the money's actually going. But I need the server room key and unrestricted access. Hargrove hesitated exactly 4 heartbeats. Then she slid the keycard across the desk. No flerish. Just a quiet surrender. Bring it back clean, Captain. Elena took the card. The plastic was still warm from the other woman's hand. She spent the next 6 hours in the basement server room where the air tasted of dust and cooled electronics. Line by line, she traced the ghost entries. Each one led back to a shell vendor registered to a P.O. box 2 towns over. The final transfer, $187,000 exactly, had been scheduled to clear at 8 a.m. the next day. At 11:47 p.m., she killed the transfer, rerouted every cent back into the pediatric transport reserve, and printed the audit trail. 68 pages. The top sheet carried a single highlighted name. Margaret Hargrove had not created the leak, but her signature appeared on every approval. Elena carried the stack upstairs at 12:19 a.m. The hospital was quiet except for the soft beep of monitors and the distant sweep of the night janitor's mop. She laid the report on Hargrove's desk exactly where the woman would find it at dawn. Then she went home. The auditor arrived at 7:30 a.m. Elena was already in the break room, coffee black. She heard the footsteps before she saw them, Hargrove's heels moving faster than they had in days, accompanied by the auditor's measured Oxfords. They found her at 7:41. The report lay open between them. Hargrove's face had gone the color of old parchment. "I signed them," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I signed every one. Because the board told me we had to cut costs somewhere, and the maintenance line looked harmless." The auditor adjusted his glasses. "These entries were routed through your personal approval queue, Ms. Hargrove. The state will require a full explanation." Elena spoke for the first time. She didn't create the shell company. She was following orders from someone higher. The real trail ends at a retired board member who's been skimming since the clinic opened its doors in '09. I have the original code commits. They carry my old call sign in the metadata. She slid a second flash drive across the table. 287 missions. I learned how to follow money the same way I learned how to follow hostels. Same rules. Don't lose the trail. Don't leave anyone behind. The auditor took the drive like it might explode. Hargrove simply stared at the woman who had just handed her both a noose and a ladder at the same time. Outside the windows, the sun had cleared the rooftops. The smell of fresh rain from yesterday still clung to the air vents. Elena stood, brushed a wrinkle from her scrubs, and looked at the CEO whose empire was quietly cracking open in front of her. 15 days until the full board hears the transport case, she said. You can spend them fighting me, or you can spend them fixing what we both broke. She left the room without waiting for an answer. The napkin stayed in her pocket, softer now, edges almost velvet. Liam would be awake soon. He liked his eggs scrambled with cheese. Behind her, Hargrove remained at the table. For the first time in years, her hands were shaking hard enough to rattle the coffee cup. The Patek lay forgotten beside the audit report, its second hand ticking down towards something neither woman could yet name. The boardroom smelled of fresh coffee and fear. Elena slipped into her usual seat at the far end of the polished walnut table, the one with the wobbly leg no one had fixed in 4 years. She wore the same faded blue scrubs, name tags slightly crooked. Hargrove stood at the head in a charcoal Brioni suit cut so sharp it looked weaponized, the Patek catching the overhead lights every time she gestured. Numbers, Hargrove snapped at 8:07 a.m., and they had better not be another fairy tale. Reyes smirked from the opposite side, tapping a Mont Blanc pen against a leather folio. Yeah, some of us actually went to business school. Elena said nothing. She slid a single sheet across the table. Column after column of meticulous figures. Every missing dollar, every inflated vendor contract, every creative rounding that had kept the hospital's books breathing just long enough to hide the rot. At the bottom, in red ink, the current shortfall, $4,217,893. The room went still. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. This is creative accounting at best, malicious at worst. Elena folded her hands. Open the folder I gave you yesterday, Ms. Hargrove. Page 4, then page 17. Then the audit trail from the 19 supplemental grant. Hargrove hesitated half a second too long. The executives around the table noticed. She opened the folder. The first sound was the sharp inhale through her nose. Then the rustle of pages. Then the soft click of the Patek as her left hand began to tremble. By 8:19 a.m., the color had left her face. Elena spoke quietly, each word landing like a scalpel. You told the staff last quarter that the budget crisis was because frontline workers didn't understand fiscal discipline. You told the donors the problem was waste in the supply chain. You told the board my department was the leak. All while you and 3 others rerouted $1.8 million into offshore consulting firms that don't exist. I have wire confirmations. I have the original routing numbers. I have the signed approvals with your name on them. Reyes tried to laugh. Came out broken. This is ridiculous. She's a night shift nurse. For God's sake. Elena looked at him. I was also the logistics officer who ran medevac accounting for 287 combat sorties in Syria and Afghanistan before my husband's funeral sent me home. Call sign was Mother Hen. You can look it up. The DoD still has the after-action reports. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the folded napkin. She set it on the table like evidence. This is why I stayed. Not the pension. Not the title. Because a little boy drew wings and told his mom she was the strongest person in the world. I promised him I'd make sure the place that saved his father's life once didn't get sold off for parts. The silence stretched until it hurt. At 8:34 a.m., the board chair, an older man named Dr. Patel, cleared his throat. I think we need to see everything, Ms. Hargrove. Hargrove stared at the napkin, then at Elena, then at the folder that now felt like it weighed 40 pounds. She did something no one expected. She sat down. I'd like the room, she said. Her voice cracked on the last word. One by one they filed out.
Elena Stayed.
When the door closed, Hargrove looked 10 years older. The Brioni suddenly looked too big on her shoulders. I thought you were just in the way, she whispered. I thought if I pushed hard enough, the problems would stay buried. I was wrong. Elena said nothing. Hargrove's eyes filled. My father died in a hospital like this. Overbilling, understaffing, the whole machine eating people alive. I told myself I was going to fix it from the top. Instead, I became the machine. She reached out, almost touched the napkin, then pulled her hand back.
I'm sorry, Elena.
Privately, before the rest of them come back in. I'm so damn sorry. Elena studied her for a long moment. Then she slid the full binder across the table. Fix it, she said. Every cent, every policy, every person you humiliated. Starting with the single parents who work nights so their kids don't have to eat cold eggs alone. Hargrove nodded once. Sharp, like a woman accepting orders. At 9:12 a.m., the board filed back in. Hargrove stood again, but this time her posture was different. Shoulders square, but eyes raw. The Patek suddenly looked like an anchor instead of a crown. She didn't wait for questions. I have been defrauding this hospital, she said. The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. I authorized phantom vendors. I inflated crisis budgets. I scapegoated the very people who kept this place alive. Nurse Elena Voss has the complete documentation. She has had it for weeks. She gave me every chance to come clean before she brought it here. Gasps rippled around the table. Reyes looked like he might be sick. Hargrove continued. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO. I will cooperate fully with the forensic audit and with any criminal investigation that follows. The first thing I will sign is a personal check for $250,000 to the Pediatric Trauma Fund. The second is my resignation. She looked straight at Elena. And I want every person in this room to know that the woman I publicly mocked in this same boardroom for months is the only reason this institution still has a future. I was blind. I was arrogant. I was cruel. I apologize. Publicly. Without reservation. The room stayed quiet long enough for the wall clock to tick 4 times. Then Dr. Patel began to clap. Slowly at first. Then the others joined. Not for Hargrove. For the woman in faded scrubs at the end of the table who had never once raised her voice. Elena didn't smile. She simply picked up the napkin, folded it once more, and slipped it back into her pocket. 3 weeks later, the hospital held its annual donor gala in the same ballroom where Hargrove had once introduced Elena as the help who wandered upstairs. This time, the podium carried a different nameplate. Elena stood under warm lights wearing a simple black dress Liam had picked out himself. The boy sat in the front row clutching a brand new stuffed dinosaur, its scales bright. Hargrove sat 3 seats away. No Brioni tonight. Just a plain navy suit and eyes that had aged in all the right ways. Elena spoke for 12 minutes. She talked about muscle memory and rotor blades and cold scrambled eggs. She talked about promises kept. She never once used the word hero. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted so long the catering staff began to peek in from the hallway. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city at 11:47 p.m., Hargrove found her alone. She carried 2 glasses of water. No champagne. I sold the Patek, she said quietly. It's going into a scholarship fund for nurses with children. Seemed right. Elena accepted the water. Their fingers brushed. Hargrove looked out at the lights. I used to think strength looked like control. Now I think it looks like showing up every single day when no one's watching. Like you did. Elena took a slow sip. The night air carried the faint smell of rain on concrete. Somewhere below them, the city kept moving. Ambulances ran. Babies were born. Old wounds were stitched closed under fluorescent lights. Liam appeared at the balcony door, dinosaur tucked under one arm. He walked straight to his mother and leaned into her side the way only tired 8-year-olds can. Elena rested her hand on his head. The napkin was in her pocket again, but she no longer needed to touch it. The promise had been paid in full. Hargrove watched them for a long moment. Then she did something she had not done in 15 years. She smiled with her whole face. The debt was settled. Not with shouting. Not with ruin. With quiet, relentless truth. With a child's drawing and a mother who refused to let the world forget what it owed the people who kept it breathing. And in the years that followed, when new nurses asked why the pediatric wing now carried Elena's name, the story they heard was never about revenge. It was about a folded napkin, about a promise made at 2:14 a.m. to a sleeping boy, about the slow, stubborn grace that turns humiliation into legacy. Because the ones who are dismissed the loudest are sometimes the only ones still listening to what matters. And sometimes the quietest hands are the ones that end up carrying everything.